I heard through the grapevine it was time to build another gaming PC. And so we shall. We've got all the components here to assemble a pretty sweet system. This has an Intel Core i9-12900K in it, an RTX 3080 Ti from Gigabyte, and a bunch of other stuff from Corsair, this video's sponsor. We have an RM850X power supply as well as some Pro Sleeve cables. We have an H150i Elite LCD, which actually has a built-in screen atop the CPU block. That's the in thing nowadays, and this one from Corsair looks really cool. The MP600 Pro XT is going to be our primary storage here, a 2TB ultra-fast NVMe Gen 4 speeds. We've got some DOM plats. You can't build a nice Corsair system without some DOM plats. This is DDR5 32 gigs at 6200 megahertz. And to top things off, we have a brand new case from Corsair in the 5000T. This thing is a beast. You're going to love its features. We're going to talk more about it here in a second. Stay with me. Fellas, did you know that 2 out of every 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the age of 35? Yeah, not 55, not 45, 30 frickin' 5. And some assume it's just a fact of life, right? I mean, what can I do? It's genetics, it's stress, or what have you. But there are things you can be doing now to prevent it. With Keeps, a licensed doctor will review your information online and recommend the right hair loss treatment plan. From there, your medications are shipped right to your door every 3 months, and you'll have 24/7 access to your Keeps doctor for any questions you might have. Keeps is the more affordable solution for hair loss and pattern baldness because they're able to offer generic versions of FDA-approved medications. And while it can take upwards of 4 to 6 months to see results, those that have are so glad they started when they did, because the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have hair left. So don't wait. Visit keeps.com/Greg Salazar, that's KEEPS.com, or click the link in this video's description to save 50% off your first Keeps order. So let's kick things off with a tour of the Corsair 5000T. This thing, again, like I said, packed full of features, including hinge doors on both the left and right side of the case. You can remove those outright if you want by sliding them up from their rails. You also, up front here, get a very quick and easy to remove dust filter for easy access to your 3 included 120mm RGB capable fans. Now up top, you've got your power button, 4 USB 3.0 ports, a Type-C port, a unified microphone headphone jack, and a reset switch. Now you might be wondering why this right side panel has a dust filter. And that's because you can actually mount fans next to the motherboard if you want. And I don't think we're going to do it for this build, but you do have that versatility, which is really cool in the 5000T. Just remove this panel and then mount fans here. You've also got an integrated fan hub as well as RGB hub, so you can control everything Corsair unified. It all is included with the case, so you don't have to spend any extra on it, which I think is really cool. Tons of cables, of course, for all that support from front I/O to the hub itself. We've got SSD trays here, and you actually get a little hard drive bay down there as well. I don't think we're going to need this. We're not going to be using a hard disk drive at all, so I think we're just going to remove that to give us a bit more space for our power supply, which obviously does have dust filter and air access from below, so fan side down is good. You can see the case is actually lifted up a bit on these integrated feet, so shouldn't have any issues with power supply airflow at all. 7 PCI slots at the rear with 2 vertical slots. So this is by definition a mid-tower. That is a big one. You do get a cutout here in your basement, so you can see what kind of power supply you're rocking. And up top, there is plenty of room for a 360mm AIO. Integrated dust filter included. So as I said, this thing is a beast. In fact, it's the perfect water cooling candidate. I wish we were doing some sort of custom cooling with this. I just unfortunately don't have the time in the schedule right now. Nonetheless, I mean, the H150i that we're going to be using is plenty, even for a 12900K, which can sometimes run just a tad hot. Speaking of, it's time to get this trusty chip in the motherboard. We can get the platform set up, and then we'll throw it all into the 5000T. We'll lift up the socket lever, and then it hinges back this way, actually. I know, LGA 1200 is a bit weird. We'll drop the CPU on in, lower the socket door and socket lever. It's a bit cringy, a lot of force, and there we go. Also, whoops, I realized I just said LGA 1200. This is LGA 1700. I get them all confused now. Next up, installing some sweet Corsair DOM plat DDR5. It's as simple as 1 and 2. It's a bit awkward from my vantage point, but there we go. Now we have the Corsair MP600 Pro XT. This thing has reads and writes of up to 7,000 megabytes per second, so it is a beast. And look at this beefy heatsink, holy cow. Needless to say, I think we're gonna forego this motherboard slab of metal for NVMe drives. We're gonna stick with the stock stuff because it looks OP. Slide it on in and very carefully lock it in. Wow, that looks really good, like it's supposed to be part of the board. We'll go ahead and arrange some of the hardware here with the motherboard outside of the case. Just makes things a tad easier. So trying to get this stuff fitted in correctly. There we go. Some standoffs going in. And here's our platform fully arranged. I am holding this so awkwardly behind the camera. I'm trying to stretch it out so you can see the whole thing. But this is a beauty for sure. Now this next part I'm only doing for the sake of the video. I highly advise you lay your case down for this part because, well, if you aren't holding this, it could just fall that way. And there's a lot of expensive stuff here in this platform. So we're gonna slide things in. I'm gonna be very careful. I'm gonna hold it like so. Magnetic screwdriver coming in handy. Don't believe the forums that say that magnetic screwdrivers damage components. That is a ridiculous notion. These magnets are way too weak to affect any of these board components. You'd have to be running some serious current through it. Here we go. We'll situate one screw here. And yeah, this is already looking, wow, so good. Check it out. I love the contrast. Now, once we're finished bolting this thing down, we'll take care of front I/O cables, USB 3.0, etc. So that's gonna be the fun front panel stuff, HD audio, and these USB 3 cables. Remember, there's 4 USB 3 ports in this 5000T, plus a Type-C port. Now, this is a bit of a mess. So I'm gonna clean it up. I'll be right back.
Day 2.
And here we are. I think this is looking a lot cleaner. Now you might be wondering why I spent all this time cable managing without a PSU installed, and that's just because managing these smaller cables ahead of time keeps things clean. All we're gonna be doing is laying the thicker, fatter cables from the PSU on top of these. So again, it should be pretty straightforward. I also moved the RGB module, the fan module, closer to the front of this case. I felt it was a better position for cable management because we have so many front fans that are running cables into this unit. So it just keeps things clean. Now what we need to do is install the AIO. That's gonna be mounted up top, and we're gonna have the fans exhausting heat through the top of the case. Now, along with the radiator, we'll be installing some ML120 Pros. I'm a big fan of these because you only have to worry about one cable per fan. This is not like an RGB capable fan. It just has white LEDs. So if you're going for a monochromatic build or just something to kind of illuminate your PC from the inside, these are a huge win. So you can see here we have everything neatly arranged, and now we can work on getting things mounted. This is always a bit tricky because you've got to route these fan cables through the case before you fully situate the radiator because there's not a lot of space behind the radiator and yada, yada, yada. But we'll figure it out. We got this. And when it's all lined up, we can tighten the radiator from up top. Our AIO has pre-applied thermal paste. We're just gonna stick with this stuff and we'll line it up like so. You might be wondering where the screen went. I'll show you that in a second. So this has a quick disconnect from the pump side of the block. You can see where that connector is right there. It just slots into the pump side. It's very easy to remove. You just pull up on it. And I really like it because it allows you to kind of remove these extra cables while you're getting that block situated. Sometimes these can get in the way, so yeah, makes things a bit easier. Thanks, Corsair. So with this side of the block mounted to the motherboard, we can now very easily install the LCD. Just clips right in like so, and we can start managing these cables. We're also gonna need to add this extra module here. This is for controlling not only the fans from the AIO, but also the RGB as well as the LCD. So that's super important here. This is included with the H150i Elite LCD, but in order to actually use the screen, you have to use this box too. So a bit unfortunate we have to have a second box in our system, but it's gonna look pretty sweet at the end of the day, so I think it's worth it. I'm gonna stick it right here where these 2.5-inch trays used to be. I took them out because obviously we're not using one of those drives, and I think it actually looks like it belongs here. Really nice. We can keep these cables nice and tight as well, so it shouldn't add any extra clutter. Now our progress so far, looking pretty darn good. You can see we have very minimal cabling showing, which I really like. That's always a goal of mine, just to hide as many of the smaller cables as possible. Just looks a bit less clean when you can see many of those. So I really like the layout of the case. It's very easy to cable manage in the 5000T. I mean, heck, it's a large case, so it should be, but no issues there. The last two things we need to do then, install the power supply and then the graphics card. I just love these custom Corsair cables. How about you? They plug directly into Corsair power supplies, which is nice, no added clutter. Gonna slide this on in from the right side. There's plenty of space down here now that we've removed the hard drive cage. And look at there. Tighten her on down, and we'll get to work on these remaining cables. Oh boy. But things are seemingly manageable with these included Velcro straps. Quite nice. So now we've got pretty much everything wired up with the exception of the 2 PCI supplemental power cables, and that's just because we don't have the graphics card installed yet. It's actually the last step, and I'm gonna be mounting it vertically so that we can see a bit more of the shroud. I think it'll nicely fill out the empty space in this larger 5000T here. Cable management actually turned out quite well. I mean, you can see we have tons of space, like well over an inch of space behind the motherboard tray. So I wouldn't worry at all about management here. You just might have to finesse things a bit to get it looking nice the way that I've got it here. I mean, you could just have like a rat's nest back here and you'd still be able to easily close the right side panel, but this is peace of mind for me. I like the clean, straight lines. So to get started, we'll need to remove all of these horizontal PCIe slot covers. They are falling and kind of making cringy sounds, but just bear with me. Here's our graphics card from Gigabyte. You can see just how sexy this 3080 Ti is. It is a behemoth, a very, very large graphics card, 2 supplemental PCIe 8 pins, so we're good there. We got a hint of blue in the shroud, but overall, I think that the color is really nice. The design overall, they just nailed it. Gigabyte did a really good job here. Now I've got this card in the vertical bracket. We're gonna torque it down and we should be able to slide this entire assembly into the case. We'll connect the riser cable to the motherboard first. Also keep in mind that some of these newer cards, this 3080 Ti is gonna come pretty close to the limit of Gen 3 PCIe speeds. So if you are interested in doing something like this with a powerful card, I recommend PCIe 4 compatible vertical mounts. All right, how does that look? It might be a bit sagged. That's what I'm gonna check now. Oh no, that looks nice and straight. And check this out, you can actually slide this card further back if you want to connect your display cables. So that's quite nice, and you can always kind of crunch things back toward the rear of the case. So I really love this flexibility here. I'll have it linked below if you're interested, but I think this is the icing on the cake. I mean, being able to turn this card sideways just fills out that remaining space at the bottom of this larger 5000 Ti. Whew, I can't wait to turn it on. Supplemental power is connected. Right side panel going back on. And I love the way that things cleaned up back here. Again, plenty of cable management space. Nice and easy. Closing that door without issue at all. Connecting power at the rear. And here we are, powering this baby up for the first time. Just trying for a post. Power on at the rear. Okay, there it goes. Had to click it twice. Ooh, ooh, wow, that RGB looks so good in those fans up front. Man, I'm kind of pissed I didn't have more of those because that looks so nice and diffused. Wow. I think Corsair is one of the best when it comes to RGB fan integration. They always have been. You don't have that kind of blocky, like non-diffused layout where you can see individual RGBs beneath the diffuser, which means the diffuser isn't really doing a good job. This LED layout is just so smooth. The transitions look so nice. And there's a post, which means our system is rocking and rolling. Check that out, liquid temp. Wow, this is a really, really high resolution screen. That's a way higher res screen than I thought it was gonna be. Wow. Pretty impressive. CPU temp's 28 degrees Celsius, motherboard temp's 30 degrees Celsius, so the AIO is definitely doing its job. We have great airflow in this case. Of course, up front you can see just how perforated things are. There's very little restriction there, which I like. Corsair's been doing it right as of late. Not really the biggest fan of some of their much older cases, I'll be honest, but they have really, really picked up the pace these last few years, and the 5000 Ti is a perfect example of what they're capable of now. You know, I've got to say, I'm a huge fan, actually, of this white and black contrasting build. I was kind of on the fence about using this card here. I wanted to use like a white graphics card, because I think that would have just, that would have evened things out a bit. You have a white internal component to complement the white exterior, but I think if we took it just a step further and maybe synced up the RGBs to just be plain white, then you'd have a really nice balance internally to complement the exterior of the 5000 Ti. But overall, I'm really happy with this. By the way, if you're wondering why these fans are not spinning, well, it's because the graphics card isn't under load. There's no point in them spinning because temperatures are nice and chill right now at idle. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this one play out. I think Corsair hardware blends really well together. Some brands have very clashing components despite them sharing the same logo or what have you. It tends to be very in your face. There are some companies that do it really well. I'm not saying that there aren't, but Corsair is one of them that I think has really done a good job, kind of like unifying all these different categories of PC hardware. You know, you don't have any like crazy branding on this case, for example. You don't have any crazy branding here in the AIO, which is nice. The DOM plats, I mean, they're DOM plats, come on. You gotta know that they're DOM plats, you gotta show that off a bit. But everything else in here, I think looks really good, and I think gels very well together. Corsair doesn't unfortunately make graphics cards yet, neither do they make motherboards, but maybe they will in the future. We'll have to give them a nudge. With that, if you want to build a system just like this one you see here, or maybe you want to change things up a bit, you can reference our links in the video description. Those are tied to our Amazon affiliate account. We usually get a 1 to 3% kickback there if you buy anything through the link, so that is appreciated. I think as is, this build is awesome. Obviously, the graphics card being the clear black sheep here, it's just, you're not going to find one of these for a decent price. It's just not going to happen. Everyone knows what they're worth by this point, and if you happen to find a seller who has no idea what the market is doing right now and they price it well, then it'll be scooped up in seconds. So at this point, buying used is really the only thing I can truly recommend, with few exceptions. And even then, you're still going to be paying way over what you should. So who knows? If you have a card that you can bring from an older system, but you want to build a new platform around it, just kind of let that graphics card tie you over until these prices come down at some point. I think that's probably your best bet, unless you just have fat stacks and you're, just eagerly awaiting to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a 3080 Ti for whatever reason. I want to thank Corsair again for sponsoring this video, giving us a chance to not only build in their new 5000T, but show you guys some of the other new components they have coming out or that have already been released, including the H150i Elite LCD and their new Corsair Dom Plat DDR5 editions, which I think are some of the best looking modules in the business. First off, I love that they didn't really change the design too much from the DDR4 gen. There was nothing wrong with the layout to begin with. So I'm glad that they recognized that and just stuck with what works. If you want some of the sexiest DDR5 in the business, be sure to buy some Corsair Dom Plats. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to let us know by giving this one a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. If you would change something about this build, let me know in the comment section below. And if for whatever reason you are not subscribed yet, smash that red subscribe button. And while you're at it, go ahead and click that bell notification icon as well so that you get notified when videos like these go live. Can you even tell I've been saying pretty much the same thing for several years? It's pretty much down to a science now. My name is Greg. Thanks for building a pretty sweet PC with me.